as a pistolero to Sal Castro, who I equate not as Pancho Villa, you know, the populist revolutionist of Mexico, but Emiliano Zapata. I see Sal as really being not a populist, but a radical. And Emiliano, the Mexican Revolution was to really right the wrongs. And I think that, as we have heard, Sal is really committing to righting the wrongs. And the reason I say I see myself as a pistolero, that I'm reminded that Juan Gomez Quiñones thought I was from Arizona. In reality, I'm a native East LA. And I like to think of myself as a person from Aztlán, because I spent about 30 years in Los Angeles, about 20 years in Texas, con Jose Angel and Raza Unida, although I wasn't a member of the Raza Unida. That's right. And then now about 15 years in Arizona, so hopefully I might make myself come back. But as you know, pistoleros, you see them, but you don't recognize them, you don't know them, but they're there and they're essential. Let me get to Chicano Youth Leadership Conference. Sal Castro, I think, one of the things that hasn't been said about him is that I think he is a strategist. He understands organizations, he understands systems, not from an intellectual perspective, but from an instinctive way, and he knows how to work through those kinds of things. And Professor Garcia, I think, did a wonderful job of relating his philosophy, which I will come back to towards the very end of my brief talk. But Sal really said, look, if our kids and our community are going to get a preparation for the future where they can be partaking in the American dream, then they have to have a first-rate education. And LA City Schools was not providing anywhere near a first-rate institution. So Sal says, hey, we gotta attack the system. We have to go after LA City Schools. And that was, the start of that was the blowouts. That was Sal's approach, one approach. The second approach, which he is not known very much for, but appreciated a great deal for, is that to go after the LA City Schools is almost monumental. It's declaring war on the United States of America without an army, okay? And so we did that. Sal was the spearhead of that. But as all of us know who are in education or in other areas, very little change has occurred. Some improvement has taken place, more access is available, but the system for the most part is intact. So what's Sal's second approach? Sal's second strategy is, okay, if we can't get the damn schools to do what's right by our kids, then let's try to develop something that helps us to help ourselves. Let's do something to negate what the schools are doing with our kids, and that is this poor image of ourselves, this stereotypic thinking about who Mexicans are or Mexican Americans are. So that is Camp Hess-Kramer. Camp Hess-Kramer and Sal's approach is to develop a strong pride in self, saying you have a rich culture Now, we know in the United States that no one shares this history with you, and that's why Sal, as a history teacher, really tried to bring in the untold story, because there are a lot of untold stories and they're all very, very positive. But the schools don't do that, and so Camp Hess Kramer really is targeted to that, developing a strong identity of who you are, feeling good about yourself. We all know that if you have a strong self-concept, then anything is reachable. And so Sal, I think, is trying to say to the youth, you are good, you are strong, you are capable, you can compete, and you can win. That's what this camp is all about. And the vehicle, again, is through education. He knows that in this society, that degrees, high school degrees, college degrees, and professional certification are the union cards to getting into careers and being successful individuals. So the camp is focused on getting students to go to college. And then lately he's been adding another term, and that is graduate from college. And we all know that it's not intelligence that makes you successful in college. Now, universities want you to believe that. And when I say this, I'm not saying that Mexicans aren't any more intellectual and academically capable, are less academic or intellectual than others. But the reality is, what makes you successful at a university or a college is persistence. Believing in yourself, setting a goal, and working towards that goal. That's all it takes. And Sal knows that every little Chicanito that enters school has those capabilities. But the schools drain that out of them. Well, enough of that. I don't have enough time to reinforce some of the things that were said earlier this morning by the speakers. So instead of doing that, I want to just add another piece of Sal's contribution to I guess the education community. One of the things that I also see Sal, I see him as the piñata buster. Okay, remember piñatas? Put a blindfold on a kid, give the kid a bat, goes after the piñata, and he busts the piñata. Unfortunately for the piñata buster, the kid with the blindfold who's swinging, when he breaks it, he doesn't know he's broken it, but the other kids know because their eyes are wide open and they dive in and they get the candies and whatever else is in there. Well, Sal swung at the schools and made it possible for a lot of folks to reap some of the goods of that. By that, LA City Schools started hiring more Latinos, Mexican Americans into teaching positions, promoting those into administrative positions as principals and school supervisors and even superintendents of education. But as I said, trying to rework LA City Schools is almost an impossible task, but it's not a task we should stop from attempting to do. So if nothing else, I want to leave you with a new term for to think about Sal Castro as a piñata buster, and you might want to hire him to try to bust some of your other institutions. So now let me end, because I know that time goes quickly. Professor Garcia was sort of equating Sal with a senior moment, Paulo Freire. Philosophy of liberation. When I was preparing to gather my thoughts about this, I was thinking about Sal. And in doing so, I try to characterize some of the ingredients. And the one ingredient, the one character that came out was not so much that he was a school reformer or the other organizational term, a change agent. But Sal really is a liberator. He is trying to free up people and free up organizations to do the right thing by persons. And so with a liberated individual and a liberated society, there's no real end of opportunities for our society to move forward. And I think it goes to what Juan Gomez-Quinones was saying this morning. What kind of a society is North America going to be? Are we going to be vindictive and really discriminating and segregating and all of those, nasty and terrible things? Or are we going to be a community where we really have a strong mental hygiene of trying to help each other and be a community of diverse people with rich culture and rich background? So I think Sal has made a long time ago that decision. Anyway, I want to end by giving Sal an award from a certificate which I created from the Hispanic Border Leadership Institute, which is no small feat. It's a consortium of about 7 universities in California, Arizona, New Mexico, and in Texas. And so I put this together, and you can't see it, but I will leave it so you can. I took a photo of Sal making a speech to an elementary school in 1970. And so I've kept it, and I put it on the certificate. And let me just read it. It's the Spirit of Liberation awarded to Sal Castro for his lifelong service as a teacher, counselor, mentor, and school reformer. I'm sorry, Sal. And for leadership by way of vision, courage, through and triumph over much adversity. called Triumph of Our Communities, and I think the title and the contents symbolically represent Sal Castro. So Sal,
okay, obviously there's always tears when talking about Sal Castro. To really understand why I, or I'm sure any of us on the panel, volunteer, and it sounds so simplistic to say, well, we volunteer because Sal calls, or we volunteer because he tells us he needs us. But it goes much deeper and much deeper than that. To understand personally why I volunteer, I was a high school student at Belmont High, and Sal was never my teacher, and not necessarily my mentor one-on-one. But for some reason or another, I was one of those fortunate students that would always bump into him on the hallways. And it was always, "Mija, ¿cómo estás?" I'm fine. Just grab my books, gotta go to class. And he would say, "Oh, you're gonna go to college, right? You're gonna go to college." It's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go to college. Okay, let me go to class, please." And I like to think that it was just me, that he was just looking after me, but I know the truth. There's millions of students that have that same story. And he took an interest, and I feel that it was a personal interest. I know the truth, but I feel that he targeted me and said, "You're gonna go to college." And I said, well, one day I had to sit down with him and say, "Sal, this is not gonna happen. How am I gonna go to school? I don't have papeles." And he said, "Oh, don't worry about that. By the time you go to college, everything will be fixed." Well, little did he know, amnesty cured that illness. And so I was able to go to college. But through the whole process, there was never a question. Not once did he look at my cum. Not once did he look at my grades. Not once did he doubted that there was a possibility. He put in my mind that I was capable of going to school. Therefore, I began to believe it, and in essence, I became what he believed. So we were, in high school, and he kept saying, "You gotta go, you gotta go." Well, I was also in the track that didn't, the ABC track. B track is the worst of all. I happened to be in the worst track of all. And he came in one day with this application, and he said, "Mija, you dance, right?" I said, "Yeah." "Okay, you're gonna go to this California Institute of the Arts for a summer. Here, just fill out the application, I'll send it for you." So I filled it out, I signed my mom's signature, and he mailed it for me. Many times I signed my mom's signature. So he mailed that form. Then I get an application saying, "Oh, you have to audition." So I go and I audition. Then I come and I tell him, I get accepted. I'm going. He said, "Okay, Mija, well, of course you are. Of course you're going." And, he just believed. He believed you could do it, and you did it. Then, of course, because I was in B track, it was in the summer, so I couldn't go because I was gonna miss school. So what seemed like such a big and a huge issue for me was, how am I gonna be able to go? And there's no way the principal's gonna change my track so that I could go. So he takes me by the hand into the principal's office and says, "Mija here got accepted to the Cal Arts this summer, and she's going, so you need to change her track. What do we need to do?" And he said, "Oh, well, of course, we're gonna change her." So he made me believe that it was what seemed such a hard and difficult thing for me to believe. He made it seem so easy. So in everything we did in high school, everything he talked to us about, everything he mentioned, it was, for him, it was something that could be done, something that will be done, and something that you will do. There was no question of if, but when. And so when he teaches you that, and you believe that, then you act on that, and you become that. So we say, well, I volunteer at the Chicano Youth Leadership Conference, and how can I not? How can you not give back to a little bit of what was given to you? The students benefit a lot from the conference, but it would be selfish for me to say that we don't either, that we don't benefit as much. Every time I go to that conference, I take as much as those high school students take with them. So we tell ourselves, I go because I can, I go because I can serve as a role model. But, while we may do those things, we also do it for ourselves. We do it for Sal. We do it because we believe that somehow, somewhere in that conference, someone is going to make a connection like the ones we made, and they too will have stories to tell. And they too will say, yes, I used to be at this high school and the people didn't believe, others did, and this is how I got to where I am. Many of us who are Latinos, I meet hundreds of business people or in education. I'm an assistant principal at a middle school. And I meet a lot of people, business people that have made it, that are lawyers and doctors, and they're doing wonderful things, but they're doing it for themselves. And they say things like, well, I did it for myself. Why can't they do it? So, well, if I can do it, why can't they do it? And who is they? And if anybody believes that they did anything on their own, it's kidding themselves. Because no one, not even that one person that thinks, I did it all on my own, no one does it on their own. There's always that parent, that counselor, that teacher, that friend. And for those of us who are lucky, maybe all those things. For those who are not so lucky, they may just have 2 or 3 people, maybe just one. Maybe they heard in a conference, but no one. And I challenge anyone to tell me that they did it on their own. No one does it on their own. So with all that greatness that was given to us, with everything that has been shown to us and passed on to us, how can we not stand here and give something back? So when Sal calls, as Robin says, we say presente, and I'm honored to. And I feel that I'm one of those, people that are, I don't think that, he should be thanking me, because I will never, as one of our colleagues said, will never be able to repay that debt. That debt will be forever and ever. And I'm just honored to be a part of this, honored to be a part of Sal. When we go to the conference, we tell the students, you have no idea how lucky you are to be those chosen few to hear him talk. And we all go to the conference, and I hate to miss that first night, because that's when Sal talks. And it never, ever gets old. It may be the same story, it may be the same jokes, but it never gets old, and you always remember something new from it. And what you live there with is all the courage and the strength to go back when you're on your lowest point and you're tired and you just can't do this anymore, to go back and do it all over again. It's like going to church every Sunday. You need that to make it through the week. Well, we need Sal twice a year to make it through the next 6 months. But, and I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank him for everything that he's ever done, and not just for me, but for the rest of us who are in this room that will forever, ever be indebted to you, Sal. We love you, and thank you so much for everything.
Good afternoon. My name is Roberto Bautista. I am a physical education teacher at Belmont High School. I got 2 difficult acts to follow, so I'll try. I won't cry, but I know I probably would during the ceremony. But let me just quickly give you some background on Mr. Sal Castro. I call him Sal because, to me, he's my mentor. He's my friend. He's my teacher. And sometimes he comes on school grounds and he calls me his mijo. And my son asked me last time, how come he calls you mijo? And he said, do you have 2 fathers? And I said, well, we all consider Sal our second dad. But to begin with, I wanted just to let you know a little bit of history on how I came to meet Sal. They often say that your life changes in one instant. My senior year at Belmont High School, I was playing baseball. I was on the baseball team for 3 years. And I was just going about trying to finish high school and get on with the rest of my life. I wanted to be like my dad. Who doesn't want to be like his dad? My dad worked in a factory. He worked as a dishwasher. He was a hard worker, and he still is a hard worker to this day. And I wanted to be like him, though he often told me, you do what you think you're best at. I'll never hold you back. Had an older brother, and he was more into work also, but he was also into troublemaking. So one day I'm out there in the field practicing. The coach calls me over. He says, "Mr. Sal Castro wants to speak to you." To this moment, I had never met the man. I had heard about him, but I go over to the field, and he's there waiting for me. He's got a large stack of papers with him, and he says, "You're R. Bautista." I said, "Yes, I am. I'm Robert Bautista." And he says, "No, you're R. Bautista." And I said, "Yes, I am." He says, "Did you throw an eraser at a math teacher, Mr. Jeffries?" I still remember the teacher's name. And I said, "I think you got the wrong R. Bautista. That's my brother, Rafael." And he says, "But you don't sound like the kind of guy that would throw an eraser at a teacher." I said, "I'm not. It's my brother." I can tell you to this day it's my brother, because plenty of times they called the house, asking because he got in trouble and I would get the whipping. So I told him, it's not me, it's my brother. So he says, "Well, anyways, now let's get past that." He says, "I have your key home here. Let's look at it." He says, "Are you going to school?" And I said, "I am in school right now." And he says, "After, well, where are you going to school after?" I said, "I'm not. I want to go out and work. I want to work as a regular person. I wanted to have a regular job. That's what I came to this country for. I came to work. But I wasn't a bad student. I had good grades, but I knew I couldn't go on because I didn't have, like Myrna said, papeles. And I was always growing up with that fear that one day immigration was going to come down and take me back. And I said, "No, I'm not going." He says, "Yes, you are." He says, "Come to my office after school." I walk into his office. He showed me my GPA. It's 2.92. I'm doing pretty well in class. I never do homework at home. I'm always getting by the classes, just getting by. And he tells me, "You're going to school?" So I said, "Okay, I'll listen to this guy for a while." So he starts giving me the application. We fill it out, and he says, after that, he kind of got into me. He took an interest in me, and no one had ever done that before. At any point through my education, whether it was junior high, high school, no one had ever told me, "I'm interested in you. I want you to succeed." And he did. So I gave him the time. I guess out of respect, I said, "I'll give him the time." And we went through the whole application process, and he says, "Now you're going to go to a program called EOP right after you graduate." I said, "Okay." My high school graduation, I thought of it so little that I never invited my parents. My mom was so upset. She said, "You graduate from high school, you never invited any of your parents." I said, "Well, I didn't think it was a big deal. I just wanted to get out of school and go work." Again, there's that recurring theme, work, because in my family, everybody worked. I got sent to Fresno my 10th grade year to pick grapes, just because I could learn the value of work. So there I am with Sal, and he says, "You're going to go to Sonoma State for the EOP program." So I graduate. The next morning, I wake up on a Saturday, and I got my Greyhound ticket. I tell my mom and my dad, "Voy a ir a un colegio. I'm going to college for a month. I'll be back." My mom says, "Estás jugando." My dad goes, "Déjalo." So they take off to buy the groceries on Saturday morning. And my friend pulls up with a suitcase, and he says, "Let's go." So I told my brother, "Tell my mom I left." And my mom goes, "Where are you going?" I said, I'm just tell my mom that I'm leaving." My sister starts saying, "Man, when you come back, they're going to give you a whooping." And I said, "No, it's okay." I got to the Greyhound station down in Skid Row. And I'm there with my friend waiting for the bus, and the lady comes over to me, says, "Roberto Bautista, your parents are looking for you." I said, "Oh my God, they found me." So I get over there, and there's my dad, and my mom says, "Where are you going?" But in Spanish, it was a little bit more, to the point. I can't repeat it here, but "¿A dónde vas, hijo de?" And I sat there, and I said, I said, "I told you I was going to go to college, man." I says, that's the only time, the time that I graduated and when my grandmother died, that I've ever saw my dad cry. He had a tear in his eye, and he turned his back on me, and my mom says, "Déjalo." And he turned his back, and I remember saying, to myself, excuse me, I got on that bus, and I said, "Jesus, if it means that much to him, then I might as well continue with it." So this was only summer break. It wasn't even school. It was just summer break. We're going to go out, check the school out, see if I like it. And my mom says, she gave me the bendición, and I got on bus, and I got up, got to Sonoma, and I loved it. I thought it was great. I said, geez, you know, the opportunities you have, you know, when you see a school of higher education, it really opens up your eyes. And I remember I sent a postcard to him, and when I came back to Belmont years later to teach, he had that postcard right up on one of the boards. And I said, did you do spell check on it? Because I know I misspelled something. And I remember other students, you know, Myrna came after I did, and it was there for the students to see, because he wanted to see other students see that, you know, someone from this school went on to something else, went on higher, you can do it too. But, you know, when I was in school and I came back down, I said, Sal, they're not going to give me financial aid. You know, I don't have any papers. Oh, we sat down, looked at the application, the FAFSA application. To this day, I keep it. I don't throw it away. 1986 FAFSA application. And where it says residential status, I remember he gave me a quote to put on there, and I always remind him of it. It says, I have not held a non-immigrant visa for the past 2 years. I am applying under the Leticia Rodriguez Maldev versus Board of Education. Da-da-da-da-da. And I sent it off. So I come back, and there it is, $1,600 for Cal Grande B. And I still can go back, it wasn't enough. So I said, you know what, came back, went to LACC, went back to my high school, tried to talk to my college counselor, and he would have none of it. He says, you know, you should stay where you're at, go to LACC and get some stuff done and go work. So I said, no, I want to see Sal. And he says, listen, go to LACC, get some credits done, then we'll transfer back up there. So I waited a year. I sat there, did 2 jobs, working at Kmart, working at my uncle's taco stand, and taking 3 classes per semester. I got through all that, went back and saw him again. The money came through, the Pell Grant came through, and I was on my way to Sonoma. So it was a long road that got me there. But it was because I was lucky enough to cross paths with one man. You know, God forbid the other counselor would have come down that time. And he would have just said, you know, it's not your brother, and I'll go find your brother. And that's the end of it. Who knows where I'd be today? So, you know, I was joking around with my fellow colleagues over here earlier, and I say, you know, I have several credit cards. I have a Citibank credit card, I have a student loan, I have a countrywide loan, a home loan, and I have a Sal Castro loan. The Sal Castro loan, I don't think I'll ever pay it. I think that'll be a revolving debt for the rest of my life. So, you know, when he calls me and he tells me, Robert, I need you for this, it doesn't matter what he needs me for. I'm there. I mean, I was lucky enough to have crossed paths with him. I'm lucky enough to see him on a continuous basis and to have him consider me as a colleague, as a friend. But to me, I don't have a title for what I consider him. You know, I consider him many, many things. And in the time that I've known him, and as I continue to know him for the person he is and the influence he has on kids, I only hope that when I'm through with my educational career, that I will have touched one kid the way he touched me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Fatima Castañeda, and I'm a professor at Occidental College. And we've all kind of, I actually want to thank Robert for giving us his personal story, because that's what we hear at the conference, and that's what we do at the conference. We're all about personal stories. And so I want to share with you a little bit about my personal narrative and story, and kind of tie it into the Chicano Youth Leadership Conference and the work that Sal Castro does, and why it is so important. So as a high school student, I was really involved with the African American movement, because my high school was half Latino and half black, and the history that was present in our textbooks was all African American history, or it was American history that did not include other people of color. And so I was very involved with that during my high school years. Went off to Cal State Long Beach, and when I got there, I realized, hey, we've got a history too. we've been in this country for a while now, no? And we've got a history, and we actually had a struggle here, and you know, kind of feeling that whole tension of bueno ni de aquí ni de allá, right? I wasn't really born here. I don't really have any legitimate claim to this land or to the rights that come with it. But understanding my history in college and being very involved with the student organizations there on campus, I really got involved with the movimiento and really became active. And then I graduated and I started teaching first grade. And there was really, at that time, nothing else happening in the community for me. So one day a friend calls me and says, hey, you know, I hear Sal Castro's putting together this conference. Do you want to go? And I was like, well, what kind of conference is it? What's it all about? Oh, he's looking for teachers. He wants facilitators, and you should go. I think it's kind of up your alley. And so I did. I went. And I went as a facilitator, and it was right up my alley. It was all about inspiring others to follow their path in life and to create change in the world. And I will tell you that when I went to the conference, I was finishing up my teaching credential. And I kind of figured, you know, I was one of these students that always knew she was going to go to school forever. And so I kind of figured, well, I'm going to go on and get a master's or whatever, go to law school. I don't know, can't decide. And it was at the conference when I felt that sense of urgency. Like, if you have the ability to go to school, if you have the opportunity to go to school, you must take it. Not, oh, you should take it. Not, oh, you know, good for you. You go, you know, there you go. There's your opportunity. You should take it. You must take it. You owe it not to yourself, not to your family, but to the community at large. It is your responsibility to go because so few of us do. And it really was through this conference where I felt that sense of urgency. And I walked away from the conference, and kind of what Mirna said, that we all benefit from the conference. I walked away going, okay, Fatima, yeah, you know, you've been very comfortable. You have your teaching job. That's nice. But what are you going to do now? Because that sense of urgency, that sense of need is still out in our community. And I couldn't believe that our community was still, even today, I can't believe that we are still treated the way in which we are treated. That sense of frustration and anger builds up in you. And when you go to the conference and you are positioned, when Sal Castro speaks and positions you in history, when you understand that history, and that sense of frustration builds up in you, you do take action. And so I walked out of the conference and said, okay, what are you doing? You're either gonna go to law school or you're gonna go off and get your master's/doctorate. Stop playing around, do something now. And this opportunity presented itself to me to pursue an EDD here at UCLA. And I really just kind of applied, not really thinking about it, but being motivated by the conference. And then I got in. And I still thought about it. Wow, you know, it's kind of a pricey program. I don't know. You know, I'm kind of having fun right now. I work 2 months, get 2 months off. Hey, you know, everything's good. And again, I went to a conference. And how could I not accept this opportunity? It wasn't that I should. It was that I must do it. And again, positioning myself in history, knowing what the way that our community is treated, how could I not go? And so I went. And I do owe the conference that it positioned me in history and gave me that opportunity to learn about other people's personal narratives. And so I wanted to talk to you about 4 things that the conference highlights, though we're not very conscious of doing it. I mean, we really are a volunteer organization. Some people I only see twice a year, and it's just at the conference. But I do want to talk about 4 things. And the first is the culture of possibility that the conference gives to all of its participants. I'm talking about the high school students, the college students that go as facilitators, us who are professionals who are working, either professionals or are still in school ourselves, everyone, the waiters or the food staff people that are at the conference, everyone that goes, the mariachi, the bus drivers, everyone who goes feels this culture of possibility. that it is possible for us to attend school. It is possible for us to graduate from school. And it is possible for us to create change in the world. And it is, again, through these personal narratives that we hear, through stories like Robert's, like Robin's, and other people who come and speak to the conference, where we hear this personal narrative and we create this culture of possibility for all who participate in the conference. The second is understanding our own history and what is known as endurance labor, right? We know that as Mexicanos, life in the United States might be a little bit more difficult for us than other people. And so what do? We rise up to meet that challenge, right? That's what we do. It's part of our history, part of our background, and we accept it. And so we rise up to meet that challenge. And so when we're at the conference and we have speakers come and tell us, again, their personal narratives and how they have had to struggle to be at the point in their lives where they are, the students who participate as the high school participants and even the college students sit there and go, all they're asking me to do is go to school and graduate. Not a big deal compared to the life that they have led. And so again, that ties into that culture of possibility. Yes, it is possible for me to do this, and it is not as difficult as the life that my parents have led, as the life that my grandparents have led. All they're asking me to do is go to school and graduate. And so again, we're planting that seed in the high school participants' minds that it is possible and it is not as difficult as they might think it is. Although for some of it, it is. I don't want to kind of gloss over the fact that it is very difficult for some of us. The other thing I wanted to mention was that we validate the students and we validate their experiences. And so it is when they discuss with each other in their small groups, well, this is what happened to me in my high school. Here's my situation. Let me tell you about, the demands of my family life. And they begin to dialogue with each other. They are, in essence, validating each other. So, hey, I didn't know that your dad made you do this, or in your house, because you're a female, you're treated like the maid. That happens to me too. I thought it was just me. I thought it was my crazy family. Now I've found support and validation in another person. And so it's great that the conference provides, again, that space for the students to have that dialogue and that discussion and to really validate each other. And what happens with a lot of the college students, and even with us, is that our own work is validated. Like, it was really difficult for me to fight against the system when I was in college, and why am I still part of Mecha? We don't get any funding, and the school looks at us like we're a terrorist organization, what's going on? But we go to the conference and we're, again, validated. No, this is important. We are not a terrorist organization. It's very important for us, again, to continue to fight ahead and to seguir luchando. And so that is what the conference does. It allows for our own, Luis Moll's funds of knowledge. What do I bring? What background do I have? What do I bring to this conference? And now it's legitimized. It isn't me and my crazy Mexican family doing something that is apart from the mainstream. It is part of a community, and again, positioned in history. And lastly, what it does is it creates a focus for our students. And I really believe that the conference not only helps the high school students go to college, like graduate from high school and go to college, but I really believe that it helps in their retention while they are at college or while they are in college. Because, again, it creates this culture of possibility for them. It validates them. Many of them come back and they want to participate as facilitators. They want to have that same feeling that it can be done. But it also gives them a focus. Why am I doing this, right? What is the whole point of me being here? Do I want to go off and get a job and work for someone? What is my reason for being here? And so it creates a focus for the students that the reason for you being here is so that, again, you can create this personal narrative that will change lives. And with your own story, you will change the lives of others that are coming not too far behind you. That is why you need to go, and that is why you need to graduate. And everyone feels it that goes to the conference. How many of you here have not been to a conference? This particular Chicano Youth Leadership Conference. Okay, so you're all invited to go. We're having one in December. December 9th, that weekend, right? Camp Pass Kramer, Malibu. And what you will feel when you go is, again, this culture of possibility. You know, Dr. Otto asked us, well, why do you go? This is why I go. Because I have this euphoric feeling every time I go. It doesn't happen on Friday usually. Friday I'm tired, and by Friday evening I'm very tired, though a little motivated. It happens for us on Sunday. And I always tell the college participants, this is a money back guaranteed. When you go, you are going to work hard, and you're going to be tired. Trust me, on Sunday, your life will be validated. Your life will feel like I am on the right track, I am focused, I now see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I know why I'm in the tunnel, by the way. Not just the light, but I know why I'm in the tunnel. And that is very important for us who struggle against the machine day in and day out. You know, we are reminded of our reason for struggling. And so I wanted to make sure that I mentioned those things along with personal narrative. And I just wanted to say that a lot of times, and I'm sure Sal gets asked this all the time, so when you die, Sal, how do you want to be remembered, right? And what Sal has done for me, for us, and for the conference is he has challenged us to not when I die, how do I want to be remembered, but as I live, what do I want to change? How do I want to contribute? What is my purpose for being here? And how can I create a life that will give others that same feeling and that same reason, so that when we all struggle against this machine, we can tear it apart and build our own new system. So, thank you.
Buenas tardes. I was begging my colleagues to let me go last. Now I wonder, maybe I should have gone first, since they've said so much about Sal and the conference and their personal narratives. I too have a narrative, and some of you might not know me, might not hear about me, might not know my narrative, because I work behind the scenes, what I call behind the scenes. I make sure that the conference runs. I make sure that everything is running smoothly way before the weekend of. And that's been my responsibility for a while. So I'm gonna let you know how I got there today. I was only 14 years old when I met Sal. He saw me walking down the hall as well, and he knew my uncle, who was a teacher there, and my uncle said, you know, this is Araceli, and I want you to talk to her about college. And I was like, what? College? I was 14. So ever since then, Sal took me under his wing. And every Cinco de Mayo, he pulled me out of class and made sure that I coordinated the Cinco de Mayo assembly at Belmont High School. And that entailed many responsibilities. That entailed, you know, finding funding for the mariachi, finding funding for the decorations, making sure that we had the speakers, making sure that we had a queen and I forgot. ¿La que carga la bandera? China Poblana, sorry. So he had a lot of responsibilities for me, and as a 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, I had a lot of responsibilities even in high school. So I knew then that I had to do what he said because he was el maestro, you know, and I was taught that whatever the elders say, I have to do. So I never questioned Sal. When it came to time for me to apply for college, I went to the same counselor Robert went to, and same counselor Mirna went to, and he said, people like you should just start off at community college. So I was very disappointed, and because all along, all I kept hearing was, you're going to college, you're going to college. And I went to Castro and I said, Castro, he said I'm going to community college. And I remember Castro walking over, really, and he's, you know, yeah, going to Mr. Thorpe's office, and he started yelling at him. And he says, do you know who this young lady is? She's going to college, and she's going to be somebody, and how can you tell her this? And, you know, she did this, and she did that, and da-da-da-da-da. And I had never had somebody stand up for me the way he did. So after that, he took me back into his office, and he says, you're going to San Jose State University. San Jose? Where is San Jose State University? All I knew was Watts. That's where I grew up. All I knew was Echo Park. That's where Belmont was. So San Jose, why San Jose? And I said, for 3 reasons, mija, 3 reasons. 1, you're gonna connect with the Chicano Studies Department there and make sure that they are doing what they're supposed to do, and that's to educate Chicanos and make sure that they graduate. 2, you're gonna rebuild Mecha, because están dormiditos, mija. They're not doing anything. I don't know what's going on with the North. Mechistas know this. And the third one is, I've never been invited to speak at San Jose State University. You're gonna get me there. You remember that, Sal? I'm happy to report that while I was there, the Chicano Studies Department had the greatest, had an increase of Chicano students taking their classes. We were able to hire more professors for the Chicano Studies Department. So to me, that was progress, and I felt like I met what Sal said. 2, I chaired Mecha twice. I coordinated several Raza Youth conferences, and I even coordinated a statewide conference at San Jose State University, which is something that San Jose never had. The third was, right before I graduated, I actually was able to get Sal to speak at one of our Raza Youth conferences. And I was privileged enough to have him speak at my graduation. So when Castro calls me, I listen. When Castro asks me to do something, I don't question it, because he believed in me just the way he believed in a lot of us. And because of that, because he believed in me and because he became a role model and a mentor, I only hope that one day I can touch people's hearts the way he does to all of us. And as a social worker, I feel like I do that. I feel like I represent my community, and my agenda has always been promoting Chicanismo. It's always been to promote higher education, but also to help them with their mental health. As a social worker, I have a lifetime commitment to doing that and making the community a better place. I also was a CYLC conference alumni. I attended there in 1992, and when I walked out of that conference, I felt like I was recently bautizada. Like Sal was my padrino and said, you know, you're now a Chicana, go in peace, you know? And so when I went off to college, before that I was a proud Mexican. After that, I was a proud Chicana, brown and proud. After graduation, Sal called me, and he says, I need you to work on this, and this, and this, and this, and that. And I said, okay, y ahí voy. Y ahí estoy. Since '99, Castro has called me several times, even sometimes really early in the morning, to make sure that I had the things I had to do for the day, and that I made sure that the conference was running smoothly. And like Fatima, at one of the conferences, I too felt like I needed to do more. So that's why I went back to school, and I'm doing graduate work now at USC. And Sal keeps pushing me to do a PhD, and a lot of people keep pushing me to PhD. I don't know that yet, but I know that at this point, I have a commitment to the conference, to the youth that we touch, and to Sal. And I tell you, Sal, that I will carry your legacy. I will carry everything that I've learned from you, and I will make sure that it continues and continue to touch everyone the way you've touched me. And I want to say thank you to everyone that has volunteered to the conference, and I only hope that all of you get the opportunity and the chance to really volunteer and get that same experience. So at the end, I can take people's names and numbers so that I can make sure that I contact you for the next conference. So thank you, Sal, and thank you to everybody. I want to say that there's a lot of volunteers that weren't able to be here, but they also want to say thank you to Sal for the opportunity, so thank you.